And let me share our source sheet. Okay, everyone see this the sheet?
Yeah, a bit bigger.
Okay. I don't know why I can't see you guys now.
Change your view.
I don't know. It's never been an issue before. Maybe because I have it. Oh, that's why. I had it optimized for video sharing. Okay. Okay, so we're in Parshat VeZot HaBracha. And VeZot HaBracha is a parsha that I was actually a little, but not totally surprised to see we have never discussed in our parsha share. And that's because it always comes right smack in the middle of the busy season. It's the only parsha that is not read on Shabbos in Shul. I mean, it can technically be read on a Shabbos as it was last year, but generally it's read on Simchas Torah. It's not read specifically on a Shabbos. Every other parsha, if a yontif interferes or falls on Shabbos, so then the weekly parsha gets pushed off till the next week or 2 weeks. But VeZot HaBracha is one that we read on Simchas Torah, and it doesn't have to be read on a Shabbos. So that combined with the fact that it's always, quote, ironically, it usually gets 2 weeks because between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, there's usually an extended time where on Monday and Thursday in Shul, we're reading VeZot HaBracha, but it's, we often take a break or we're focused on talking about Shuva or the holiday of Sukkot, and so we've never had a chance to discuss VeZot HaBracha, at least in this setting. So the as the name implies, VeZot HaBracha, this is the bracha. It describes the bracha, the final blessing that Moshe gives to each of the tribes, or most of the tribes, right? There's one tribe missing from the bracha that Moshe gives, and that's a topic for a different year shir, maybe. And then we read about the death of Moshe. And so there's there's definitely a lot in the parsha to talk about. And among the interesting topics, which again for a different year here, I think we've had classes where we've explored this in other contexts in the shul, but the final chapter, which describes Moshe's death, is the source of a lot of fascinating discussion about the nature of the Torah and about how is it possible, right? Did Moshe write about his own death? How is it possible that he, after he died, and it says that God buried him, so Moshe can't really write that, right? He's not around. So there's some very interesting discussion about that. Within the details of the different brachot that Moshe gives, there's also a lot of really interesting things, and a lot of commentators. Again, I think we've explored this over the course of Yom Tov over the years. Just explore the notion of bracha in general. What does a bracha mean? What does it mean that one person blesses someone else? It gets tied in with the Hasidic world to discussion of Birchot HaTorah, the blessings that we make over Torah study. It's a really rich parsha that even for those who study the parsha on a weekly basis, it often gets overlooked because it's not read necessarily on Shabbos and because it's in the season of the Chagim. So it's nice to be able to spend a little bit of time. I also just wanted to put out there that next week, continuing what I just said, Erev Yontif, or the night before Yontif, we're not going to convene. We're not going to have a Parsha Shir next week. In 2 weeks, Chol HaMoed Sukkos, I would love to gather together in the Sukkah and celebrate our completion of another year of study, and maybe do a little bit on Parshat Breshit, because the way the calendar falls this year, we won't have time for Parsha Shir before we read Breshit in Shul. So we can check in on people's availability either Monday or Tuesday of Chol HaMoed Sukkos to get together in the Shul. I think the board said they would chip in to provide some pizza or some snacks or something. So so we can celebrate it could be a quasi siyum, and we can hopefully spend some time together in the sukkah. But with all that out of the way, let's get into VeZot HaBracha, and I wanted to focus on an idea that I think is probably one that is familiar to us once we delve into it, but has its source in this parsha, and as we'll see, is a little bit more complicated than we might have thought. So the parsha opens. Am I zoomed in enough? Can everyone see the
A
verses?
little bit.
A little
bit.
more? Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit bigger.
All right.
That's
Okay.
That's perfect.
Great. VeZot HaBracha asher berach Moshe ish Elokim et bnei Yisrael lifnei moto. This is the blessing which Moshe ish Elokim, the man of God, blessed the Jewish people before his death. Vayomar Hashem misinai ba v'zarach miseir lamo. And he said, God came from Sinai and he shone from Seir to them. Hophia mehar Paran. He appeared from the mount of Paran. V'ata me ribivot Kodesh. And you are from the plains of Kodesh. Mimino eshtat lamo. From his right, he was, it's translated here, lightning flashing at them from God's right. From his right, an eshtat lamo, to them. So there's a lot of familiar midrashim that play on these two verses, right? This is the source for the famous midrash about the fact that God went from nation to nation offering them the Torah. That's why, right? That's how the medrash reads. Zarach me Seir, from Seir represents Esav. So God goes to Esav's descendants. He says, do you want the Torah? They say, what's written in the Torah? God says, don't murder. They say, well, the entire essence of who we are is about murder. So no, we don't want the Torah. Right? God goes to other nations. So that's the source. But I want to focus on this final phrase, Eshtat Lamo. And what is meant by Eshtat? Right, so it's translated here as lightning flashes, but as we'll see, that's not the way most people read it. But let's spend just a moment with the JPS commentary from Professor Tigay, who tries to explain this meaning of Eshtat, which is a very unclear word. He says the traditional interpretation, reading it as two words, right? You can even see that if you go back up, right? The way it's written in the Torah is, as I just highlighted, Eshtat is one word, but the tradition says it should really be broken up into two separate words, Eshtat, which literally means fire, and dot we generally translate as law or belief. So a fiery law or a fiery belief. So the traditional reading of Eshtat as two words, a law of or from fire, is midrashic. It says it has to be midrashic because the word dot, law, is Persian that did not enter Hebrew before the 5th century BCE. The translation, so right, it's too late. It entered the lexicon too late to have been written by Moshe, right? Or from from a more academic perspective, even to be however you're making these calculations, right? No matter how you cut it, it seems that it would be too late to be considered in this with this translation. So that's why he prefers the translation lightning flashing, reflects an implicit emendation of Eshtat to be Aish plus a second word of which only 2 letters have survived. So he thinks it should be Aish do leket. And those middle letters, right, the Vav, Lamed, and Kuf, are somehow got cut off. That seems to me just as problematic as saying that the Aish dot as 2 words is problematic. But anyway, that's his working theory. This reading is suggested by the motif of God surrounded by radiance in the poetic passages mentioned above. Lightning flashing from God's right could reflect the conception of the deity brandishing a lightning bolt in his right hand, ready to hurl at his people's enemies. In that case, the word lamo, for them or to them, would mean for them rather than at them. Another possibility is to interpret Eshtat as slope. The singular of Ashdot, as in Ashdot HaPiska, the slopes of Pisgah mentioned, and I have the pasuk that he quotes below in Devarim 3:17. In that case, right, yamin, means south, and the clause means from the south of the slope of Pisgah he came to them, or from the south he came to them at the slope of Pisgah, referring to the nearby mountain. The clause would then refer to God coming to Israel at its encampment in Moab, perhaps in anticipation of the coming conquest of the promised land. So I bring this not because I'm convinced that what Tige says is correct, but just to show that it's a very problematic phrase and that, no one really knows how to translate it. And you could be convinced or not convinced by these explanations, but just to say that it's complicated. It's not so simple, and so we're going to turn to some other sources.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the past couple of minutes. Just to ask, the word "dot" in modern Hebrew now means religion.
Right.
Effectively, somebody who is
Right.
dati is religious. So esh dot conceivably could also be interpreted as the fire of religion.
Right. So that's a
Fire of
modern
yeah.
word, meaning dot in rabbinic speak refers to belief. I mean, it's not far off from religion, but it's more belief or law.
Faith.
Yeah, faith. We could go with faith also. Yeah, so
All right.
fire religion is not terrible, but that also probably is anachronistic from the even from the rabbi's time. Okay, so in the dot mikra, which is the modern day contemporary but religious, a very it's from it has academics, but it's from it's not a commentary. He says miyamino. Natan Hashem Israel eish dot. God gave to Israel an eish dot. Hainu dot mitocha eish, which means law from within the fire. Kimoshe ne'emar lemala hashama'am kol elokim medaber mitocha eish kasher shamata ata vayechi. He says it's not. I mean, the word might be far off and might be the first time we're encountering the word, but the concept is seen earlier in Sefer Devarim. Right? Again, I brought the pasuk here for you, even though he quoted it word for word. Right, where Moshe, in his introduction to the people, tells them, "You are unique in that you heard the voice of God speaking out of the fire, unlike any other nation has ever heard." But that God communicates out of the fire. So Eshdot reflects this reality that God speaks to us out of the fire. Okay. The main thrust of where I want to go is based in Rashi, and Rashi tells us, Eshdot, you can see, right, even in the way that Rashi, right, this is from the Sefaria website, but no, it's written here as two separate words, not as one word. So, right, it's indicating that Rashi is reading it as we would expect, as the rabbinic tradition says it should be read. Shahayata ketuva me'az lifanav, the Eish Shchora al Gav Eish Livana. So he says the law, which had been written before him from olden times, meaning the Torah, right, according to rabbinic tradition, existed from the time of creation of the world, is written with black fire upon white fire. Right, we've all heard this idea that the Torah is black fire on white fire. Okay, so if you haven't, so now you have. The Torah is black fire on white fire. Natan lahem beluchot ketav yad yamino. So right on the tablets, God gave them his handwriting with his right hand. Davar acher, or an alternative explanation, ketargumo, follows targum unclis. Shnatan lahem mitoch ha'esh, that he gave it to them from the fire, as we saw in the previous comment as well. But right, the idea that Torah is eish shchora al gav eish levana. It's black fire on white fire. So what do we think, right? What does that image evoke for you? What does that mean, that the Torah is white fire, black fire on white fire?
there's a duality of communication, two lines of communication, one being dark, black,
Mm-hmm.
the other being lighter, and both of them elements of the message, and that immediately suggests Torah Shebechtav, Torah Shebal Peh, that it's
Okay.
inherent in the text itself.
Okay. So black and white is the concrete and the non-tangible, you would translate the white?
Um, you've got two different lines of color
Okay.
of messaging of using the terminology we might use in regard to electrical signals that are there, and there are messages there. They're in tandem. They are sometimes in conflict, and the combination of these streams of energy, of information, make for a tradition which is eternally relevant, but has
Okay.
to be applied and requires work in order to avoid getting like a circuit breaker. It flips and it stops working. It,
Right. Okay.
it's not something which is easily presented in 1, 2, 3. It's much more potentially.
Okay. Any other initial thoughts on what might be meant by black fire on white fire?
Well, the literal translation could be that the black fire or the black lettering of the
Yeah.
Torah written on the surface, which is white. But that's a
Right.
very literal translation.
No, but that's how a lot of people take it. So, and there's some really beautiful explanations with that in mind. Right. So just to build on what Lou was saying, if we look at in the next source, the Gemara Menachot, it brings an opinion, Amar Rav, lo need, sorry, Ela l'chdeidach Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. So it brings an opinion of Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Kol ot she'ein givil mukafla me arba ruchoteha psula. Every letter in the Torah must be completely surrounded by white space.
Mm.
If the two letters are touching, so then the Torah is not kosher. Okay, but the white space is integral for the Torah. I was going to, I didn't want to push my luck. I already shared a video. I didn't want to start pulling up other websites or images. But there's this really cool concept in in graphic design and art. I don't really know from such things, but of the empty space, right? So the best example of that, if you can picture the FedEx logo. And so the FedEx logo has an arrow embedded between the E and the X. Look it up afterwards if you can't picture it. It's once someone says it to you, you can't not see it. But right, the use of empty space, or if you're a sports fan, if you remember the Hartford Whalers from the NHL, so they have probably the coolest logo ever, where they have a whale tail, and it's made in a way that in between the different creases of the tail is a W for the whalers. So there's other examples of that, but the use of empty space. So right, that's how many understand this as Lou was saying, that literally the white is the empty space between the letters. And so there's all sorts of beautiful explanations about what that white space represents. And so just, we'll get into some more of them, but one really nice one is that you need to have time to properly absorb each and every letter of the Torah. That, right, not only is each letter have space around it, but the Torah doesn't have the breaking up of the psukim as we read it, but there are paragraphs and there are spaces, and right, that we need to take time to absorb and contemplate what the Torah is telling us. So that's on a very simple level, how some understand the white space. The Maharal takes it in a way which I think is counter to how most take it. And I didn't know how to fully translate all this whole passage. So I cheated. I just put 3 dots. But if if anyone can help out or wants to take some more time to make sense of it, but the Maharal says as follows. And right, the Maharal, the Gur Aryeh, is a super commentary on Rashi. So he's commenting on what Rashi said. When Rashi says Eish Chora al Gabe Eish Levana, black fire on white fire, Davar Zeh Sod Mufla says that this is a wonderful secret. Torah nikret b'shtei shemot, because the Torah has 2 names or 2 characteristics. Nikret b'shem chesed. On the one hand, Torah is called or is named chesed, kindness. We know this from the pasuk that we say, or many of us say, every Friday night in the Eishes Chayil. Torah chesed al lishona. The Torah of chesed is on her tongue. And it says, right, that the Torah's ways are ways of pleasantness. So that's one characteristic or attribute of Torah. And at the same time, it creates bilashon emet. Torah is called truth. Torah emet hayitabafihu, as it says Malachi, right? A person of God, an angel, has the Torah of truth on his mouth. Ki mitzvah be'atzma asiyatzahu hatov v'noam. Performing a mitzvah, performance is nice and sweet and pleasant. Leficha chaya yesod haTorah eish levana. So the very essence of Torah, before you get into any deep understanding, is the basic performance. He says that's represented by the white fire. Why is white fire representative of performance? Kasher taskil b'mitzvah timsa uto emet v'nachonhu. Kamoki Uravaim, Ushmir Shabbat Tov Noamhu, Kasher Taskilbo, Nimsa, Shahu Ra'ui Mechuyav La'asot. Nimsar Ki Ikara Mitzvah Hu Tov V'Chesed. Right, that the essence of a mitzvah, keeping Shabbos, honoring your parents, it's all good and kindness. He doesn't bring as an example the mitzvah to destroy Amalek or some of the more troubling ones. But the mitzvah in general is something which is very pleasant. Zehu Moreh Ish Levana. Right, this is indicated by white because white is generally seen as something positive and soft and gentle and pleasant. And again, this is where I started to lose how to translate this accurately, but the form or the shape, right, I guess the parameters or the deeper essence of the mitzvah is black fire. Because black indicates a very strong rishima, an impression, a shadow, something visible. So the Torah has many explanations. So the shachor he sees as being the more deep understandings or the more spiritual, philosophical underpinnings behind the mitzvah. Again, most people take it the opposite way, that they'll see the black as being the more concrete, literal, and the white fire, right, the absence of letters, the negative space, the empty space, as being more of the spiritual, mystical. Maharal.
I'm just curious why you're reading it that way, because I'm seeing is like if the Torah is chesed and emet, that's the ish levana, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you do it, eventually you'll realize it's the right thing to do. It's like it's ultimate truth. But the tzura yeshachor moreh rishima u'retetev, like I guess the explanations that people try to give for why you should do the mitzvot, right? Or maybe even I can even read them as like taking a knock at the Pharisees, you might say, or the halachic Jewish, right? Like all of the parameters are necessary so things are clear to us, but ultimately it's the white fire that, like, if you just do it, you'll see that it's the right thing to do.
Okay.
So I thought maybe
so
you had more.
No, I really, like I said, I don't claim that my reading is correct or accurate. I struggled with it because
Yeah.
on the one hand, you're right. He is saying that the white does represent the emet, right? When you understand, then you'll see how kind and pleasant it is. But he seems to also be saying that it's the performance which is the more simple. So I'm not sure. You're right. I'm not sure exactly how to cut it. Okay, let's go to um, number 11, the Gemara in Beitza. So the Gemara in Beitza has a different take on this notion of Torah as fire. Tana Mishmei de Rebbe Meir, Mipnei ma nitzna Torah l'Yisrael. Why was Torah given to the Jewish people? Mipnei shehein azin, because they are impudent. Tana de Rebbe Ishmael, Mimino eish dat lamo, and he quotes our pasuk from his right hand eish dat. However, that's going to be understood. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, V'uyin halalu shetinatin lahen dat ish. God said they are deserving to receive, right? And here it flips it, not ish dot, but dat ish, a law of fire or fiery law. Translates a little bit better, maybe. Ika de Amre, there are some who say, Datehem shel elu ish. Their law, the Torah that we follow, is fire. She'ilmale lo nitna Torah l'Yisrael. What does it mean that the Torah is fire? Had the Torah not been given to the Jewish people, ein kol uma v'lashon yicholin la'amod bifneihem. Then no other nation or tongue could withstand them. Meaning what? I'm not sure I know what it means, but what do you think that means?
It implies that the burden of Torah weakens the Jewish people.
Yeah, it somehow is
That the
a
Jewish
taming
people have a
factor.
strength. Yeah.
Yeah, that the Torah tames us and comes and reels us in from our. It's unclear if it's in a negative sense, right? That we would wreak havoc on the rest of the world, or if we'd be overly spiritual, we'd be, we'd have time for other things, and that might lead to world domination. I don't know what exactly it means. Like what has to be reeled in, and what would happen if it weren't reeled in, but that somehow the Torah is fire in the sense that fire requires distance, I guess, so that it makes a barrier, I guess, between us and the rest of the world, or it reels us in some way, and so it's it's a really interesting take there.
Fire might also be something that's used to make something stronger, harder, purer, more pure, and the strengths that are promoted by that fire might be accompanied by a loss of certain other characteristics, so that while ancient Israel might have potentially conquered the world, they had other things to do in conquering their own internal limits, desires,
right. But
conflicts.
What you just said is quite ironic, right? That if fire strengthens them and also weakens them, right? The strengthening is what reels them in. That sounds like very Buddhist-like, but yeah, I think there's something there.
I think this is like one of those things that might apply to the charge of genocide that is being tallied about, right? Like, oh, yeah, you're like Rebbe Meir, you're right. Were it not for the fact that there's like a code of conduct and morals and ethics that guide the Jewish state and its military, yeah, none of you would be here, right? Like if we were, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's just like sort of, it's a reining in of the az or the oz even.
Yeah, so that the laws themselves is what limits us or constricts us. Yeah, very, very possible. Okay, we'll do one more rabbinic source. That's the Sifrei, and then we'll go to two contemporary takes on this. Okay, I will show the English and I'll read the Hebrew. Mimino eish lamo. Magid shedivrei Torah mishulim ba'esh. So right, it tells us that the words of Torah are compared to fire. Ma eish nitzna min hashamayim, kach divrei Torah nitzna min hashamayim. Just as fire was given from heaven, so too Torah was given from heaven. I'm not sure if what that means. Fire was given from heaven. If it means lightning, if it means the original fire, I'm not sure what exactly that means.
There's an echo of that in Greco-Roman tradition,
Yeah.
and the person who leaked the secret of fire to humans ends up being punished horribly by the Greco-Roman gods because he had given humans something that could make them compete in the outlook of
Right. I imagine most ancient religions have similar fire stories. But yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so just as fire it comes from heaven, so does Torah come from heaven. And then it's just we don't need to read all the verses, all the proof texts. Ma'ish chayim le'olam, kach divrei Torah chayim le'olam. Fire gives life to the world, so too the words of Torah give life to the world. Again, a little bit counterintuitive because we generally, we need fire. We need the warmth. We need to be able to cook food. But fire, we generally, at least I generally think of as being more destructive than life-giving. But fire has that life-giving element as well. Then it says, Ma'ish karov la adam nichveh, rachok mimena tsonen. So just as with fire, if a person gets too close to the fire, they'll get burnt. If they get too far away, they'll be cold. Kach divrei Torah, kol zman shadam amal behem chayim heim lo. So too with words of Torah, every time a person is occupying and toiling with them, it gives them life. Piresh mehem mimitimoto. But if you separate and you abandon Torah, then that can be a cause of death. Ma eish mishtamshim ba ba'olam hazeh u'lolam haba, kach divrei Torah mishtamshim bahem ba'olam hazeh u'lolam haba. Fire is used in this world and in the world to come. I don't know how fire is used in the world to come, but Medrash assumes it is. So too Torah is used in this world and the world to come. Ma'ish kol hamishtamesh ba oseh gufo roshem, kach divrei Torah kol mishtamesh ba oseh gufo roshem. Just as with fire, everyone who uses it, it leaves an impression, a mark on their body. So too Torah leaves a mark or impression on one's body when they study it. Ma'ish amelim ba nikarim bein habriot, kach tamidei chachamim nikarim bihilucham uvidibaram uvatetifem bashuk. So too, what with fire, anyone who's able to master fire, I guess is how you would translate that, is recognized or distinguished among other people. So too, Talmidei Chachamim, Torah sages, are recognized and respected when they go out in public. Okay, so we're certainly familiar with other metaphors of Torah, and here's the fire metaphor of Torah. It doesn't really explain the white versus the black. It's just just the Torah in general. Okay, let's go out of order. We'll go to Rav Zalman Saratskin first. Oznaim la Torah. He says ha'esh eshtat, right? So in the he, right? Again, I don't know how much to read into this. Actually, I typed this, so let's not read anything into it, right? But it's the one word and not broken up into two. I can't remember if I was copying from a source that had it as one or two words. So never mind that. But ha'esh me'ir lanu et ha'afela, umare lanu et haderech. So what is the significance of the Torah? I don't think it's a direct translation, right? So fire gives us light in the darkness. Moreh lanu et haderech. It helps us to find the way. Mechamemet otanu bimei hakor, mimateket et machalim. It gives us warmth when we're cold. It mimateket literally means sweetens, but I think it means it cooks or makes more edible our food. Aval yachad im zeh tzrichim lizaher mimena. But along with that, we have to be careful of fire. Shelo lahachvot b'gachalata, not to get burnt by its heat. Mu'edet lechol et ha'ra'uila v'she'in ra'uila, because right, using a technical halachic term, it's already forewarned, or it's already known or presumed to be likely to consume et ha'ra'uila v'she'in ra'uila, both what is fit for it and what is not fit for it, right? Yeah, it'll burn your wood, it'll make a fire in your oven, but it'll also, you know, burn your skin and cause damage. Et haguf et hanefesh. Zohi Toratenu Hakdosha Eishdat, and that is the meaning of our Torah as being described as Eishdat. And so I could have brought a whole slew of sources that describe the dangers of Torah learning, the dangers of Torah. That yes, Torah is a beautiful thing. We love learning Torah. Torah enriches, but there's a danger to Torah as well. Right? Certainly, if one misuses Torah, if one uses Torah for their own benefit, or if one doesn't properly understand Torah, that there's a whole bunch of sources in the Gemara that talk about the dangers of Torah and how Torah can be certainly very helpful and very positive and very good, but also there's a real danger in the misuse of Torah. So he says that's what's meant by the white fire and the black fire. Again, he doesn't specify which is which, and some could take it either way, I guess. But he highlights that tension. Okay, and now let's go to Rabbi Weiss. We started with Rabbi Linzer, and now we'll go to Rabbi Weiss. So my two teachers are getting airplay tonight. So he writes, and again, he's just he's summarizing a bunch of different takes on this. On the simplest level, Lou, just like you said, black fire is the letters of the Torah, and white fire the spaces between the letters. On another level, the black represents what is clearly written in the Torah, the pshat, while the white represents what we bring into the text when we interact with it, interpretations, applications, and expansions of the text. This is the drash, the message we read in between the lines. And yet, on another level, the black letters represent the cognitive message, whether pshat or drash, while the white space represents that which goes beyond the world of the intellect. The black letters are limiting, and fixed. The white spaces, on the other hand, catapult us into the realm of the limitless and the ever-changing, ever-growing. They are the story, the song, the silence. Sometimes I wonder which speaks more powerfully, the black rationalistic letters or the white mystical spaces between them. The rabbis say that in divine poetry, the black letters rest on the frame of the white empty space. The white fire gives the black fire its foundation. In the end, fire differs from water. Torah is often compared to water because both are crucial to life. Still, water flows towards the lowest level, while fire seeks a higher plateau. It reaches higher and higher, still burning past our eyes and ears into our hearts and souls and memories. This is especially, that should say, true of the white fire. It soars heavenward, linking the finite human being with the infinite God. Such is the power of Eishdat, the fiery law, the Torah. So this is in no way exhaustive, especially if you spend time in any of the Hasidic works or any of the other mystical traditions. You'll find multitude explanations of the black fire and the white fire. It's, as I said, it's typically VeZot HaBracha, Parshat VeZot HaBracha is conflated with Simchas Torah. And as we think about Simchas Torah, there's a whole other significance to Simchas Torah this year as the anniversary, the yard site of the horrors, right? It's October 7th in the English calendar, but it's Simchas Torah, Shmini Atzeres, I guess, for us on the in the Hebrew calendar. But Simchas Torah is a time where we reflect on our relationship with the Torah and how we connect with the Torah. And so, we all connect in very different ways. Robert, as you said very beautifully at the beginning, there's different modes. And I think part of what we do in this Parsha class is try to explore some of the different approaches and some of the different modalities. Obviously, we can't get all of them all the time, but over the course of our year of study together, I hope that we've gotten some of the black fire of Torah, some of the white fire of Torah, maybe some other colors as well, some other facets. And it's really been a great pleasure to complete another year of the Parsha cycle. I know we missed a couple weeks here and there, but it's really it's one of the better surprises of my rabbinic career that this year has continued to go on. We're now going to be entering year 4 with the Zoom formats, and please God, it should continue to be strong. And I really have very much personally gained from hearing all of your wonderful perspectives and questions and ways of thinking about things. And I hope that this gives us, I know we should be focused on Tshuva, and Yom Kippur is coming up this week, but part of that is thinking about our connection to Judaism as in a broader sense, and our connection to Hashem and to Torah. And so this image of the black fire and white fire hopefully is helpful for that as well. As I said, stay tuned. I'll send an email just polling if Monday or Tuesday of Chol Hamoed Sukkos is better to hopefully get together in the sukkah and celebrate this wonderful year of learning together and set the stage for another cycle coming up in a couple more weeks. So hopefully we'll see everyone on Friday, Kol Nidre, and it should be a week of reflection of Tshuva, and a Gemar Chasima Tova to everyone, a Shana Tova, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
All right,
Thank you.
Laila Tov.
Bye.
Laila
Laila
Tov.
Tov.
Good night.
Good night.